Hello, everyone. Welcome into today's session, Closing the Gap, Turning Insights into Actionable Business Value, presented by our Director of Business Solutions here at Watermark Learning, Dr. Susan Heidorn. My name is Mariela Salinas, and I'll be assisting in moderating today's session. We are on Zoom for today's webinar, and we will be emailing you a copy of this recording after the webinar concludes. We do encourage participation throughout the session, so please use the chat or our Q&A option for a short Q&A after the presentation. Educate 360 and Watermark Learning are so excited to present this webinar today. So without further ado, I will hand it right over to you, Dr. Heidorn.
Thank you so much, Mariella. Welcome, everyone. Happy Thursday. Today, we're going to explore one of the key techniques in your tool set as a business analyst. I mean, this is really important. I think it doesn't get the attention that it really deserves. And so when we think about gap analysis, we kind of think initially about, okay, it's about current state to future state. Okay, and then there's a gap there. But it is so much more than that, as we're going to talk about today. It's really a structured approach to identify, what are the opportunities, understanding really what the root causes are, and based on that, to be able to provide and develop really some really good recommendations, and not just a recommendation that we throw at the wall, but something that's really going to provide value. So today we're going to try and connect the practical with the theoretical. And so we're going to actually do a little bit of work here. I had Mariella do a bunch of polls. So this won't be just a kind of a listen thing. I'm gonna make you work a little bit. We have a little case study, and it's just a way to try and connect concepts. How does this look in the real world? And I only have an hour with you, so it'll be quick and hopefully painless, but hopefully a little fun as well. So what we intend to kind of cover is, first of all, let get a base. What is gap analysis? What is the role? Why is it key for business analysts? So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about some structured techniques to be able to assess the current state and the future state and do the gap. And then really understand that we have to connect it most of all to value. And then, of course, bringing these insights and concepts together, because if any of you are studying for your CBAP or CCBA, or just trying to apply business analysis to your organization, we're going to bring that all together, because like I said, this is one of your key concepts, your key tools that you will have in your tool set. And hopefully we're going to build on that and get that tool set to that tool all sharpened and ready to go. All right, Mariella, do you want to launch the first poll? I'm going to introduce it a second. So I want you to think about, when projects struggle in your organization, what is usually the biggest problem that you're seeing? So just put in the chat, is it poor requirements? Is it wrong solution, unclear business problems, lack of stakeholder buy-in? We'll get everybody to answer here in a second. So we'll give you a few minutes before we close it. Still waiting for some people to participate here. What are you seeing? Interesting. So I think it's getting getting pretty much done here. So I'm going to just end the poll and we'll see what we have here. So I'll share results. And it looks like, and I didn't give you the option of picking all the above, but some poor requirements, some wrong solution, unclear business problem. That is 39%. I'm surprised that actually isn't a little higher. Kind of interesting. And stakeholder buy-in. I'll put a plug in for org change management. That could certainly help there. But, they all can contribute. We discover that, if before we move to solutions, which we tend to do. I mean, just going to say that it's like, if your organization is like a lot of others that I've worked with or consulted with, we kind of jump to solutions instead of really looking at what the problem is. Or we see the problem, oh, poor requirements. Oh, we just need to get better requirements. Or the wrong solution. Oh, well, maybe let's try a different piece of software. Or unclear problem. Well, let's fix the symptom instead of the root cause. Or, oh, it's just because, we didn't train people and we didn't get their buy-in. And so what happens is we jump from that initial problem that we think it is, could be a symptom, and then just jump to say, okay, here's the solution. It's off my plate. Check. Done. Now somebody else go and enact that project. And I don't know if your organization is like that, but gosh, I think it's because there's so much change, we just jump to solutions. And think about, and I'll just get on my little soapbox here, the millions of dollars we put into those solutions, and then maybe not having it be the right solution after all. So it could be something else. We think we're fixing poor requirements, but maybe we're fixing a staffing issue or a data quality issue, or I mean, there's just could be so many other things. And it's like, first of all, are we fixing the right problem? And second of all, is it really the root cause and not the symptom? So we're going to be talking about that. But just this was kind of nice to get you a little bit of awareness going, what is kind of going on here. All right, so thank you for doing that. We are going to move on here. And so why are we talking about gap analysis? Why does it matter? Gap analysis, instead of just throwing something at the wall and hoping it sticks, it's like, okay, I'm gonna put all my eggs in this basket. It really helps us to slow down, think about it. And I know that's hard in this day and age. It's just everything's coming fast and furious. Our bosses want the answer immediately. They want to get it off their table, off their desk, make that big check mark. But we have to help them understand that let's just slow down for a minute. What is really happening? And so gap analysis provides a structured framework, structured way, if you will, to compare where we are today and then figuring out, okay, what is preventing us from moving forward? And so that when we look at making recommendations, instead of just an educated guess that maybe we're right, but maybe we're wrong, we can get better than that. So gap analysis really helps us understand, what is the true root cause instead of the symptoms. Let's make sure that everybody has a shared understanding. Are we all on the same page? Do we all understand this? Does somebody have a different viewpoint that might be needed as we get a holistic view of what this issue is? And then that in turn, if we have more information, if we have better data, we've done better analysis, obviously then we get better decisions. And so it really drives meaningful change, and thinking about, not only the value that comes from the recommendation, but the value you provide as a business analyst to say, let's step back, let's make sure this is right. Before we spend millions of dollars, are we fixing the right problem? And so that's what we're going to take a look at. And this is just a quick, easy roadmap. You might be familiar with it. So we got to assess current state, and we're going to be doing a little mini case study, as I said, throughout. Define the future state. Okay, and then because we're not at the future state, there's going to be a gap between that. And so we're going to identify the gap. But then we're also going to dig a little deeper. It's not a matter of just finding the gap, but it's also doing root cause analysis. And so just digging deeper and saying, hey, are we really fixing the right thing? Once we get the cause understood, then we can recommend actions. Does this mean new software? Does this mean new training? Does this mean a reorganization? And it could be a combination. It does just not have to be one thing. It could be really a combination going on. But at the end, here's the key, the end, whatever it is, we have to make sure it provides value. Does it deliver value? Because if it's not, then we did all this for nothing. Because at the end of the day, we need to make sure that it delivers value. That's one of the things that we as business analysts need, is to provide value to the stakeholders, value to our customers, value to the organization. If we're not doing that, we're not doing our jobs. So what is gap analysis? As we said, it's kind of looking at the current state and the future state. So current state is, where are we today? Okay. And so where do we want to be in the future? And then thinking about the gap is, okay, how come we're not at the future state? What is preventing us from getting there? It'd be nice if we could just go from current state to future state and not think about it. But we got to figure out, something's preventing us from getting there. What is going on? So why do business analysts need gap analysis? Is to understand certainly the problem before we recommend solutions, identify those opportunities for improvement. Because if we're not improving, we're kind of just standing still. And in this day and age with this fast changes, that doesn't bode well for us. Aligning the change initiatives, whatever I recommend and whatever we look to the future state to be, should match, align with the strategic objectives of the organization. Because if they're not, and your organization is going to California, but what you just recommended will get them to Florida, probably not workable. So making sure, you got to put your strategic hat on now as a business analyst. How does it align to the strategic initiatives? How does it align to where the organization is going? And so that's why we need to, when the future state should help us fulfill that strategy. So that's where we need to put our strategic hat on. And then of course, we have the gap, and then we will recommend something, and then but we need to maybe prioritize those investments. Maybe there's a lot of things we could do, but what makes the most sense? Given our resources, what do we need to be able to do? And so it's really, we were talking about data-driven decision making, that's become very popular in the last several years, on top of AI. But we still need it. We need to still support data-driven decision making. If we don't have the data, how are we going to make the recommendation? And so we need to be able to understand that today's performance, the gaps, where do we need to go strategically? So here's our little case study. Thought I'd make it fun. I don't know, it's wherever you are at, but it's summer in the United States, especially in Minnesota, which we've had a really weird weather. I mean, some days, at least in May, I mean, one day it was 40 and the next day it was 90. You didn't know how to prepare. So we're going to talk about Summit Outdoor Gear. They're getting you ready for all those weather changes, and whether you're climbing the mountain or going golfing or whatever you're doing. So they're growing fast. Okay, this is a fictional company, but they're experiencing a lot of growth because people want to get outdoors. They want to do something, especially when in Minnesota, you've been stuffed inside for 6 months, unless you do winter sports, which they have you covered there too. And but they've been growing fast, but the customer complaints have been increasing. It's like, oh, there's other outdoor gear places, and if we don't get this handled, people are going to go somewhere else. We got to get control over this. Or orders take 7 days to fulfill. Customer data stored in 3 different systems currently, because we were growing a lot. We were just kind of putting things together. It's like, okay, well, let's just, keep it going. And, so we kind of had some redundancy there, it just, when you're fast growing, that kind of happens. And then we have more operational cost, that doesn't help. We have all the tariffs and everything. So now our costs are more expensive. And leadership says, hey, what should we fix first? Where do we start? You know? And because they really like to keep this company going. And so they know there's something wrong, but they're not sure where to focus. What should we do first, second, and third? And so your job as a business analyst is to figure out what's happening, why it is, and make a recommendation. So the first thing we need to do, of course, is understand the current state. So what's happening today? How are we performing? What processes are we using, or which ones at least are followed? What are the stakeholders experiencing? What is the customer experiencing? And one of the most common things is that organizations skip this step. They go, oh, I know. I know. That's the first mistake. Whenever you say, I know, it's like, do you really know? Because we jump to assumptions, it's just like, oh, it's a process, or it's this, or it's that. It may be true, but unless we get the data, unless it's supported by evidence, it is just a guess. And sometimes it's wrong. And so the things that we need to look at is more of a holistic aspect of the current state. So it might be people. We've got to look at people. Are they trained well? Did they get buy-in? Are they doing the process? Did the process need improvement? And we just, we've been just throwing software at it. What about technology? Does it support the process, or does it not? Does its own thing? So there's a disconnect between process and technology that supports it. What about the data or policies? And so we might think, let's say if it's a customer service issue, we might think it's a technology problem. Or maybe they can't get access to us, or maybe there was a problem. But it could be, maybe it's inconsistent procedures. Maybe it's unclear ownership. Maybe it's just really poor data quality. After all, we have them in 3 different, places. So the current state analysis should be based on fact, measurable performance, and not opinions. Otherwise, we're back to, oh, I'll just throw something at the wall. I'll just spend millions of dollars. Oh, that didn't work. So what else should I do? Because I don't think we can afford to do that. I don't think any organization can afford to do that anymore. So here you go, analyst. Where would you start? So you have one day. One day. Isn't that true of our organizations? It should have been done yesterday. You don't get a whole lot of time. So one day, where would you start? So Mariella's opened the poll again. Where do you think you should start? Where would you like to start? So I'll wait a little bit till everybody gets aboard. All right, slowing down a little bit. Let's give you one more minute. Oh, we got 80%. So I'm going to end the poll. and share the results. So, what do we see here? Interview stakeholders. I would probably say that too. It looks like 48% of you agreed. It's like, yeah, I'd interview the stakeholders first. And then maybe I'd look at metrics and review existing documentation and observe the employees, doing some observation, some shadowing. All right. Um, the interesting thing, and I only let you have one option, so that was a little cheating on my part. But in reality, all the approaches are useful, and you know this, so I'm preaching to the choir here. But the hallmark of really strong business analysis is something we call triangulation. Okay. And triangulation can be a bad thing. So if you're triangulating a conflict, that's something you don't want to do because you talk to the person who can't do anything about it anyway. But triangulation here as a business analyst is a really good thing. So what do I mean by that? Using multiple sources to validate the findings. Because otherwise you may have bias. If I only interviewed stakeholders, I'd certainly get their opinion. But what if there was some more things going on? And people talk to each other. And so sometimes you go down, I find in experience, is you go down the round rabbit hole. And so if you have an important decision to make, if you have to make a recommendation, let's make sure that we have a more holistic view. So I may do some interviewing. I may also look at, hey, what is the data saying? What are the metrics saying? What reports do we get? Did we do any customer service surveys, satisfaction surveys? Maybe observe the employees doing the work. Is it a technology issue? Is it a training issue? They don't know how to do it. There could be a lot of things going on there. And maybe I want to review an existing user manual or existing process. We just have to, when you do, as you know, if you're looking at existing documentation, just make sure it's correct and not something that was so yesterday that it doesn't help. But the whole point of this is that you want to gather information from multiple sources. So that's a really good place to start. And so you might want to do interviews. Say, here's the interesting thing. Each technique looks at something different. And that's why you get different perspectives. By habit, I think a lot of us go to interviews. It's easy. I know who to talk to. I'm just going to go, see what's going on. But that only gives you one viewpoint, one piece of the puzzle, one piece of the pie. Observation will tell you what they actually do and not what they say they do. If anybody's noticed anything like that, which I have, it's like, well, they said this, but they really aren't doing that. They said the official, I should be doing this one. Process mapping looks at the workflow metrics. Are there trends? You want to look at trends, and I want to spend a little bit of time on this because a metric, a data point, doesn't tell you much. So I might say that customer satisfaction, 1 out of 10, our recent customer satisfaction turned out to be 8.5. Just okay. So what don't I know about that data point? Did it go up from last month or last year? Did it go down? Maybe we were getting 9.5 and now it's 8.5 going, wow, what happened? Or maybe it was 7.5 and now it's 8.5. Woohoo. A metric does not tell you anything unless you have it in context. And that's where you want the trends. Has it been going up? Has it been going down? Is it all over the map? What is it? And a lot of times when you do interviews, people have their own biases, their own perspectives, but they don't see the whole thing either. And so that's why you want to do that triangulation, taking at least 3 of the techniques and saying, okay, what do I need to look at? And then, of course, the process maps, you can find waste and inefficiencies, bottlenecks, those are really helpful as well. And, document analysis kind of understands what expectations were at the current state. And that's what we're looking at. What were the historical decisions? So one of the things you really want to look at is kind of figuring out, what is really going on. And the only way we can do that is sometimes through a number of techniques. So we want to know is, okay, what are the delays? Are there workarounds? Are people not following the process? What's frustrating the stakeholders? What's frustrating the customers? And do you have the data to support that conclusion, or it's just like, this is kind of what it feels like. And so what you want to do is, and if there's discrepancies, that offers valuable insight too. Okay, what's going on here? So it's not always going to gel. It's kind of like you look at this way, this way, this way, and so you all get different points of view, which you want. So now we're going to step 2, design the future state. So what does success look like? What are the outcomes? What capabilities do we need? Do we have the capabilities in-house, or do we not? What capabilities do we need now that AI is coming or has come? We're now putting it into a lot of our organizations. Do we have the capability to use AI? Or do we need to train people? Or do we need to bring people in that have that expertise? How will success be measured? So what we want to do in future state is not just map out the new process or the new technology. It's really first identifying what are the outcomes. Is it reduced customer wait times? Improved data accuracy? Reduce processing cost? Outcomes are not solutions. Just want to make sure you understand that. It's not a solution. It's where you want to go. It's very outcome based. So faster service, because no matter what the outcome is, it could be different. You could have 3 different outcomes. Those will be 3 different solutions. What is the outcome that you are looking for? It's not just putting in a new CRM or ERP package or AI implementation or whatever else you have going on. Are you trying to reduce cost? Are you trying to increase, make better decisions, in decreasing decision time, higher customer satisfaction? All of those might have different recommendations. So next poll. Which do you think best states the future state as it should be? So which statement best represents? So Mariella has opened up the poll. Which one do you think you would look at? Say, yeah, that's good. That's a good statement of the future state. So wait till we get a little bit more here. Thank you for helping out here. Love your answers. All right, I'm going to end the poll and share the results. Hopefully you can see them. So interestingly enough, we have one CRM package, implement AI, replace the current software, and reduce order fulfillment is 78%. So 78% wins. Actually, and this kind of feeds into what I was saying, is that we often confuse future state with technology implementation. A new CRM package is technology implementation. Implement AI, same thing. Current software, what the really, because we said future state should be outcome based. It's really reduce order fulfillment from 7 days to 24. And there could be a whole lot of different things. We might even do a number of things. It's not maybe it's software, but maybe it's training, or maybe there's our vendor is, really late. That we could throw all the software and technology at it before, but if we don't get the material, we can't sell it, right? So we got to figure out what are we trying to get to before we can make that recommendation. And this distinction is really important. It's really critical because 7 to 24 hours is a definable measure of success. We have to know what we're looking for. The others, they may be a solution, but maybe they're not once we start investigating. And so just making sure that it's like, okay, where do we want to go? And is it aligned to the strategy? What are the outcomes we're looking for? And then figuring out, okay, now what is the best solution? Best solution to do that. So thank you for participating here. So looking at current state and future state, and this is where you can really start seeing the difference, right? That gap analysis starts being a little bit visible here. So going back to Summit Outdoor Gear, here we have is, the current is 7 days. Okay, so we did all the metrics. We looked at it and said, okay, current is 7 days. Future, we want it in 24 hours. Okay, so our customer service satisfaction rates are 71%. We'd like that 90. We have data in 3 databases. Maybe want a single customer view so they're not having to look all over for their stuff. And then maybe we have manual approvals. We grew fast. We were just kind of putting things together as we needed it. And now we have a hodgepodge of spaghetti. We got to streamline that workflow. So the key question is, as you do gap analysis, what stands between today's reality and tomorrow's goals? And so people can really, if you can document this, it's like, here's where we are and here's where you want to go. To be able to understand, okay, we've got that current state to future state. There's a gap, obviously, with 7 days instead of 24, a huge gap. Now, what do we do? And so right now we're saying, okay, there's a gap, but we're not sure why the gap is. And this is where we start moving into identifying the gaps. It's like, okay, we know this is where we want to go. This is where we're today. And there's different types of gaps, and not all of them are equal. So there might be a process gap, not very good workflows, and might be a technology gap, missing functionality, data gap, poor quality, or maybe it's not the gate is not even available or readily accessible. People gaps, skills, capacity, policy gaps. And we want to look at the different ones because if we just stick with, let's say it's a process gap, we think it's a process gap, and we look there, we might not look elsewhere. So sometimes a gap could be because people don't have training. Technology doesn't support the business need. Data quality has bad performance, or it's inaccessible. But the thing is, like I said, a lot of times we think the issue is technology and it's somewhere else. And so really trying to be objective and looking at all aspects and not just assuming. One of the best things that I've learned to do is like, I think it's this, because I, been around the block for a couple days. I think it's that, but I have to be really, and I think this is where our humbleness comes in as a business analyst. We have to be humble to say, maybe it's something else. Maybe I need to look elsewhere and not just put all my eggs in a basket saying, oh, we're just missing functionality. So we just threw $2 million on new functionality and it didn't get us to where we thought we were going. That doesn't help. So what type of gaps, since we're looking at gaps, so when we do our analysis, we want to look at process, we want to look at technology, data, people, policy. Those are the things we talked about when we're assessing current state as well as future state as well as gaps. Where are they? They could be in different places. So we Mariela is going to put poll number 4 out. So we'll see. So customer information exists in 3 separate systems. We talked about that as being a problem, right? What type of gap, since we just talked about gaps, what type of gap is that, do you think? We have some good analysts out here. All right, well, I'll just end it here and we'll share results. So interesting. I thought you might think it was all data. And that was really intentionally a little bit tricky. So most of the time when I do this, most people pick the data, but you pick process and technology. So that is really kind of an interesting venture. So you're right that, just because the data exists in 3 separate systems, there might be some other things going on. So one question we could ask is, why is the data separated into 3 different systems? Is there a governance issue? Who owns that data? Is it a process issue? Is it a system integration issue? So we were just putting in software just here and there and we didn't integrate them. So you spotted this, I believe, is that real world problems often have multiple dimensions. And so we have to look at more than just one gap. It would be nice if life was that simple. But it's complex oftentimes. And so just working at that complexity. All right. And so once we get that kind of figured out, it's like, okay, now we got to drill down to root cause. So you would ask, because the gap is the orders are taking 7 days. We saw that. Okay. And there's a gap between the 7 days and the 24 that they want, right? And so there could be lots of causes. Maybe there's too many approval steps. We got to put in the data 3 times because there's 3 different places. Maybe the processes were designed horribly. Maybe they're not even automated. Maybe they're just manual. And so, and we do have some common techniques to use the 5 whys fishbone. And we have some classes around that. So the gap does not mean equal root cause. The gap means the gap, and then we have to determine what is going on. Why is that a gap? What's causing it to be 7 days instead of 24, which is our goal? And so we want to be able to dig a little bit deeper. So we have another poll quickly. It's going to keep you on your toes. Order processing takes 7 days. That's the problem. So is that a symptom or the root cause? What do you think? Because when we describe an issue, it often doesn't tell us what it is. So we'll give you some time to think. All right, we'll just quickly end this poll and share the results. So, a lot of you thought it was a symptom. It is a symptom. So you're right. It's not root cause because we don't know why it's 7 days. We know it's a nice metric, and it's like, okay, that sounds good. It's a number. It's a number. It's a quantifiable number. But we don't know why. Why is the order processing? It's that why question. It doesn't tell us why it is happening. And that's why that's why. It's a symptom. And so we have to get underneath that. It's like, okay, what's happening around the 7 days? Are we not getting stuff from the vendor? Is it a training issue? Do we have convoluted processes? Maybe the scanning equipment isn't working. I mean, there could be a ton of stuff, and we got to figure out what the root cause is. Because if we just jump to assumptions, we could be jumping in the wrong place. And so then once we get the root cause, we know what the root cause is. Okay, we got it. Then we can recommend actions. They should be, before you do actions, is evidence-based, data-based, quantifiable. Yes, we've seen this. Needs to not good, easy for me to say on a Thursday, feasible. How about that? And hang on a second, and measurable and aligned to business goals. So we have the gap, we have the root cause, then we can do the recommendation. If we don't have that, our recommendation is just a guess. It's based on assumption. And unless we have the data to say otherwise, it is just going to be an assumption. Then once we get the recommendation made, we just say, okay, we have to prioritize. And I don't know about your organization, but no money trees in the backyard, no exhaustive resources that we can use. Organizations rarely have unlimited resources to throw at things. And so like anything else, we got to prioritize. So, you have the simple benefit versus effort, high, low, benefit, hard. So then you prioritize. So if it's high benefit, but it's really hard to implement, we might have to prioritize because it's going to take some resources. It's going to take time, cost, money, people. If it's hard, but we don't get low benefit, why in the heck are we doing it? If it's easy, well, maybe. And if it's a lot of benefit, but easy to do, well, that's kind of like a no-brainer thing. Let's do it. So it just helps you if you're going to make a recommendation, where should you make that? And so being able to think about when you prioritize, what are you looking at? And this metric or this matrix can change. If you want a risk versus something else, or any matrix depends on what you want to measure as far as the matrix. So you can look at impact to the business, strategic alignment, how close does it align? You can look at risk, cost, effort, dependencies. Value, and value is a combination of benefits minus cost plus risk. You can have a positive value, which we hope you're going after, versus a negative value. If cost and risk are greater than the benefits, hence you have a negative value. Other way around, if you have cost and risk less than the benefits, then you're doing good. Then you get a positive value. So our whole goal is to deliver value, and making sure that we didn't waste time. We didn't waste a lot of money going after and making the wrong recommendation or implementing the wrong solution, but really delivering value. Gap analysis creates value by, improving customer experiences, efficiency, reducing cost, reducing risk, increasing revenue, which isn't on there. So this step is another one that most people forget. The purpose of the gap analysis, and the end of the day, is not identifying gaps. It's creating better business outcomes. Your organization is investing a lot of money in a lot of those initiatives because they expect measurable improvement. So did they get the value? Value is the ultimate measure of success. If you didn't get it, then you weren't successful. So if you look at Summit, we go back to our outdoor gear, fulfillment reduced by 36 hours because they said now it's 7 days. We want it in 24 hours. Okay. Customer satisfaction was, I think, in the 70s. Now we want it 91. Duplicate records reduced. We had it in 3 places. Now we'll have it in 1, or at least whatever we do to that to reduce that. And operating cost reduced by 15%. What does value look like, and how do we know if we've achieved it? So as we said that we would kind of combine it with the CBAP and CCBA exam because that is a business analysis exam, and gap analysis appears in a lot. It certainly appears in strategic business analysis, strategy analysis. That's usually a lot of this stuff is pre-project work. And once we make the recommendation, it goes into a business case, and the business case might go into a portfolio management prioritization. So that both the strategic analysis includes current state, future state, change strategy, how you're going to move on, and of course, risk. And then at the end, solution evaluation. How are we going to evaluate value? Did we get the value or did we not? And this actually, if you can check for that, if you can evaluate your solution, it also makes us better business analysts because we'll go, how come we didn't get the value we thought? Were we making some assumptions? Did we actually have the data? Did we actually do a good gap analysis? Did we do a good root cause assessment? Were we actually fixing the problem that needed to be fixed, or was it just a guess? And just remembering, if any of you are taking the exam, that it's really application based. So this will help you. It's not memorization. So just some key takeaways. Again, simple framework. And you can use this in whether you're studying for the exam or not. It doesn't matter. This is stuff you do in your work world. So assess current state, define that future state. And the future state is by, what are the outcomes that we expect to see? What are the gaps now? Analyzing the root cause, recommending actions, and delivering on value. So here's the key things I'd love you to remember is understand what's going on before solving it. Don't just throw something at the wall. Focus on the causes, not the symptoms. And value. At the end of the day, it's all about value. That's our goal as business analysts, to provide value to the organization. So gap analysis is not finding what's wrong. It's understanding what stands between us, today's reality, and tomorrow's success. And how do we help the organization close that gap? So final poll. I know I bugged you for a long time. Final poll. Which step in your organization is often skipped? I'm just curious. Do you not do current state, future state, root cause, or prioritization? So Mariella, would you like to kick off that poll? And this is just curious. There's no right answer to this. Doing a little mini assessment of what's going on in your organizations. I see a little bit of current state, a little bit of future state, a lot of root cause. It's interesting, we're not spending enough time there. That's true, because leadership wants to get it done, wants to check it off, a problem solved, I can go on to something new. But what if we're not doing the right thing? Then we just wasted a whole lot of money, whole lot of time. We could be working on something else that provides more value. And prioritization. So I'm going to end the poll and share the results. Very interesting. So I was kind of surprised. I thought a little bit more current state because that is sometimes um, not done as well either. I see more people really working on future state, but current state seems to be forgot. Oh yeah, I know. I know. And so that's where our assumptions come in. So so always kind of interesting. Well, that was a really fast few minutes here. If you're interested in one of our classes, we have strategic business analysis, which talks all about this, as well as if you're interested in your certification prep. We also have, which is not on here, root cause analysis, if any of you want to get a lot better in that. So you can just check watermarklearning.com site. But in the meantime, Mariella, do we have any questions I can answer before we have to let everybody go and get back to their real world?
I will give our amazing audience a second to add in any other questions, but we had a bunch of great engagement throughout.
Yes, we
Um,
did.
so
Nice
thank you
work, you
all.
guys. You had to do a little bit of work on this webinar.
Just a little bit of heavy lifting. But in the meantime, if anyone wants to throw in any questions or feedback, I did go ahead and drop in our resource hub with all the amazing things that we have going on at Watermark Learning. You can learn a little bit more about us, you can learn a little bit more about business analysis, or you can register for our next Watermark Learning session on 6/9, turning relationships into results with business relationship management. So we have a lot of really amazing stuff going on, and we have just a bunch of amazing feedback. Great webinar. Thank you so much for the session. So this was a lot of helpful info for our audience. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. And as always, thank you so much, Dr. Heidorn, for everything.
You are most welcome, and everybody have a great rest of your week and a lovely weekend. Hope to see you next time.
Yeah, see you next week, hopefully. But yeah, have a fantastic rest of your day and week, and we'll catch you later. Alrighty, bye now.
Bye bye.